Okay, welcome to the Check Your Privilege Ally Talks with Maisha T. These talks are conversations I'm having with self-identified allies to talk to them about what work they're doing to keep their privilege in check and how they're showing up as co-conspirators for people of color. So today we're changing it up. I have with me Alex Tip. He is a relationship and wellness coach. He is our first male in the series. Alex, tell us about yourself, who you are, what you do.
Well, first of all, hello, everyone, and thank you so much, Maisha, for having me on. I'm truly honored.
Glad to have you, Alex. You're amazing.
Oh, thank you. So I actually got into wellness and relationship coaching because I really wanted to reprogram the thought process on relationships. I feel like there's a lot of negative programming that we get in terms of what a healthy relationship is. And for me, it's really understanding that our imperfections can be beautiful in a relationship, and they should be. So, for example, America has one of the highest divorce rates ever. And a lot of it has to do with the fact that we have this idealistic way of interpreting what a successful relationship is. And that's not really how it is. A lot of times people just want the movie relationship, the one you see like that's on Instagram or movies and social media. And things are not perfect all the time, and that's okay. So I want to create a realistic approach for people to pursue relationships in a more successful way.
Awesome. Thanks for sharing that, Alex.
No
So
problem.
let's kind of get into it. Since you're sharing your feedback, your approach to successful relationships. In your industry, Alex, in the health and wellness industry, have you noticed the absence or silencing of Black, Indigenous, people of color's voices in your industry?
Yes, and that's particularly why I try to always utilize people of color in my videos and to create more awareness and support for people of color of all diverse backgrounds. Also, I feel like a lot of times for me, when I was becoming a coach, it was really hard for me to see and look up to other people of color like me in the health and wellness industry. And I wanted to create more awareness for that. And I still think it's a huge battle for a lot of us. I mean, that's why when I first met you, I was like, Maisha, oh my gosh, we gotta be friends. We're in the same industry. We're both people of color. We should start working together. And I think that's really, really important.
So as someone who's noticed this silencing of our own voices, someone who's noticed the lack of support even for people of color who are in the coaching field, what do you think we can do to change this? Like, what can we do to like make sure our voices are heard and that we stand out in the industry?
Well, I think the first thing is the one thing that we actually did together, which is like really connecting and sticking together. It's not about competition. It's about understanding, about building a community. And I think that's really important because right now when I go to wellness events, I'm not gonna lie, a lot of people look down to me as a person of color, you know? And if it's another Asian person, a lot of times they'll look at me and say, oh my gosh, you know, like he's someone that's talking about diversity. He's kind of rocking the boat. I'm not sure if I want to associate with him. And I get that a lot when I go to health and wellness events. Or a lot of times people will try to talk to me like they're super woke, but their values are totally different from what they're saying. And of course, their actions speak differently than their words. So I see a lot of that, a lot of this. I really want to promote diversity in the health and wellness industry, but at the same time, I don't want to associate myself too much with people of diversity. And I think that's where you get the backlash because we have this culture of wanting to look a certain way, but not necessarily acting upon it. I'm not sure if you've recognized that as well.
Oh, absolutely. And I think, like you're saying, one of the ways that you just articulated that we show up in these spaces is really being an advocate for other people of color in the space and really acknowledging another person of color without feeling the need to like have our ego inflated and show up as someone more woke as you, but just really know that we're in this together. And when we see each other in these spaces, like let's embrace one another and let's promote others that look like us to kind of come up in the industry with us together and not separate. I think that's awesome.
Yeah. Also, for example, last week I had a really rough week. Okay. And this just shows you the territory of what we're dealing with nowadays, even in this 2008 very liberal society and media-based community. I finally hit 18,000 views on one of my videos. And before that, I was getting up there. I was like 15,000, 16,000. And it was a pivotal point in my career, in my influencer status on both Facebook and YouTube. And I felt really, really just like excited and amazed. But just a couple of days ago, Facebook started deleting all my videos that were over 8,000 views. And a part of me knew this because coming in as a person of color, as well as someone who was queer, I knew that I was going to challenge a lot of people's belief systems and values. And at my highest point, I was taken down. And I don't know what it is about people taking down my videos or being offended by who I am, but it happened. And this is a challenge that we all face as people of color in this industry, is that it's this kind of like undercover treatment that we get that's not put in the light, but it's still there. That really happens to a lot of us.
I'm sorry, that bothers me. Like the fact that you have this huge following and then your videos got taken down. But had you been Billy Barker, who was a gay male with these videos, what would have happened to you if your name was Billy Barker and you were building?
It probably would have been different. I mean, this is the reality of the culture, you know. I realized that it's going to be a challenge for me being queer and being a person of diversity in this industry. And I was prepared for those challenges. Of course, it sucks every time it happens, but these are the type of challenges that we face. And a lot of times, you know, we even face situations where, again, when we go to events, we'll get talked down to because people just assume that we're not as professional as them because we're not, you know, the same economic status as them, or we're not the same color as them. So it does become challenging at moments for all of us, especially people of color.
Yeah. So real quick, you guys, for you guys wondering, like, why is Alex not on just the regular brother chat that you host on Facebook? Alex wanted to do this because he does identify himself as an ally to his, to us, to our Black people, non-Asian people. And so he realizes that he has a certain amount of privilege just for being Asian, an Asian male. And he really wanted to come here and give voice and show support of his work and what he's doing to unpack as an ally. So for those of you who have been watching the series for a while and you're still just kind of like, but he's Asian and he's a male of color. Well, Alex is an Asian male of color who happens to be gay, but still has a level of privilege above those of us who may be African American or American Indian, and he recognizes that, and that's why he's here today. So I just want to say thank you, Alex, for recognizing that and showing up as like this co-conspirator in this moment.
You're very welcome. I'm honored to be here, and I think this is just part of what we need to do as people of color, is to help support each other. It's not about just me being Asian. It's about me understanding that diversity is people of all different types of backgrounds, not just Asian.
Absolutely. So let's get into allyship, Alex. You kind of spoke to this a little bit already, but what does allyship look like to you?
Well, for me, allyship is understanding diversity as a whole, and I think that's really important. So, for example, it's being a Asian Pacific Islander ally as well as advocate puts me in a very interesting place. A lot of times I go to these conferences for API conferences, and I'll see a lot of support for fellow Asian Pacific Islanders, but dealing with things outside of that become kind of tricky because we're saying we're proud to be people of color and we support Asian Pacific Islander rights. But again, diversity is more than just my culture, it's everyone's culture. So what I like to do is actually create more awareness, not just for Asian Pacific Islander rights, but also for rights of Latinos, for African Americans, and for all people of all different backgrounds. The one thing I did this year is that I actually got an opportunity to speak at San Francisco Veg Fest. And I realized that a lot of the platform was due to me being a safe choice. Actually, thankfully, SF Veg Fest has been extremely open-minded about having people of color on their talks, but I wanted to make sure that to get to the next level. So when I got offered the opportunity, I realized talking about diversity is more than just talking about myself and being queer and being Asian, but also talking about all aspects of diversity. So I chose to take my platform and create opportunity to make it a diversity table where I have people who are African American, have people who are Latino, have people that are Middle Eastern. They're gonna all be able to tell their story during my talk, as opposed to me just talking. And that's part of what I think we need to do as Asian Pacific Islanders, is that understand that diversity, we have to think of diversity as a whole as opposed to just a section, right? So I meet a lot of coaches, especially a lot of API coaches, where they're strictly promoting just API awareness. And I want to change that perspective. I want us to think outside of the box and be able to actually acknowledge diversity on a broader perspective. I also do my Vegan Brothers talk, where I do a talk with my two friends, Monk and Kat. Kat is biracial, he's Latino and African American, and Monk is African American. And we always do a talk together every Thursday because I want to create more opportunities for people who are trying to get exposure of color out there. So I think it's important to create, as an education designer person, an outlet not just for my culture, but for all cultures.
I like that, Alex, and I like the way you explain, like, not only did you explain what being an ally looked like to you, you actually given examples of how you're unpacking your own privilege by showing up and participating with people of color, and actually not being afraid to step back in doing so, because you realize that it's not even all about you. So
exactly.
One question I'm going to throw a loophole in for you is, have
Sure.
you ever been offended or violated or talked down to by a white person? And if so, did they ever attempt to repair the offense with you?
I've been talked down to by more than just Caucasian people. I've been talked down to by
right here, because these conversations are really to help white people be more aware of the injustices they have against Black, Indigenous people of color. So has a white person, specifically in this question, ever offended you? And if they did, were they able to repair that relationship with you?
Yes, they were able to. And I think that's what I try to do a lot within my channel. So for example, when I was in middle school, I'll give you an instance where that happened, and also other factors happened as well. So I remember in high school, they had like these two girls, and they're like, "Your eyes are so effing chinky," you know? They just seem like they could just go on forever. And I just told them right away, I was like, "Listen, that is extremely disrespectful comment that you're making towards me right now." And then I remember they asked another group of Asians that were at the next table, and they said, "Well, do you think this is offensive?" And then the fellow Asians just said, "Oh, no, I don't think it's offensive," because they didn't want to rock the boat. So I think this is an instance of action speaking louder than words. Later on, you know what I found out too, is that those same Asians that refused to actually help fight back for me or defend me, they got into liberal studies and studied ethnic studies, and then became like API advocates, but their values are pretty much the same. I talked to them recently, and even though they like talk about being woke and all these other things, I'm like, you still were the people that refused to defend me when I was in high school. The two Caucasian people, they currently watch my videos, and they actually personal messaged me on Facebook, like literally 20, like not 20 years later, probably like 15 years later, and said, we are so apologetic. We're so sorry we made those comments. We were so ignorant. And I think that's really important. That's why I create this platform, is because people get to create and see awareness for diversity. And I think that's so important. And I have so many new like Caucasian allies that have come on board to my Facebook channel because they want to learn more about diversity. And I try to create outlets for that, not just again for being an Asian Pacific Islander person, but also for people who are African American, Latino. So I think it's really important to have, people like us do these type of things, do videos, be influencers, because we start creating awareness where there's no awareness available.
Yeah. So I liked how you shared your story of, it has the two parts, the parts of silence from your own comrades, and then the part about how these girls did something to you 20 plus years ago, but now here they are 20 years later apologizing. It's interesting that I got to go back to this, that even at that moment that no one spoke up for you. And even then, I don't even know if the young ladies apologized to you then, but 20 years later, they came back and offered you an apology. What was it like for you for that kind of reconciliation, even though it was 20 years later? For you, was there like oh, y'all should apologize to me years ago? Or was it like a greater appreciation that they actually realize it now than when you were younger?
Well, for me, it's really, I mean, I think as you get older, you understand growth more and more. So when they finally apologized, it's like, this is amazing. Because not only did it help me out just in terms of like letting that go, but also it created awareness about the type of work I'm doing on my channel and how creating more awareness of diversity is really impacting people in a positive way. And how I should keep on doing it and keeping myself motivated to do it. So I really love that aspect. And also it helps create awareness about just like, my own culture and how, a lot of us Asian Pacific founders need to start standing up more and acknowledging our own privilege. Like, for example, if I'm in a car with someone who's African American and Latino, most likely they're going to be, they're going to be attacked way more than I am. And I understand that privilege of then being, an Asian man. Yeah, there are factors where I get discriminated against, such as the example I dealt with in high school. But again, there are people that are dealing with way worse as well. So understanding my own privilege and how that actually plays in is really important to me.
Absolutely. So let me ask you another question. I want to talk a little bit about throwaway culture. So this is something that is rooted in patriarchy, which stems from white supremacy. This idea that when someone isn't good enough or someone doesn't do what we want them to do, we can just get rid of them and move away from them. I think it's 100% okay for us as people of color to want to distance ourselves from people who have offended or violated us. But I personally don't believe in throwing people away, right? I think that's just a thing in America that we do because it's a cycle. It's a cycle that just keeps perpetuating. So Alex, in race relationships and in diversity, how do we break the cycle from throwing each other away due to our racial differences?
I think conversation is the most important part, and also letting go of ego, because we have to realize that a lot of times we close ourselves off when we're just calling someone like a bigot and like a racist right away without completely helping them understand the situation. So I think it's really important to have conversations, to be open to conversations, to let go of a lot of the programming, because a lot of times we don't realize it, but we're programmed to think a certain way about people of diversity, and it happens a lot,
Dave and I just talked about that this morning.
Yeah. And especially with people of color, just understanding themselves too. I feel like a lot of the programming in the media has situated itself with then creating an image of how you should be as opposed to how you are. And I remember when I was doing a t-shirt line for a nonprofit, and I was just trying to do some fundraising, right? I really wanted to encompass people of diversity, especially women of color especially women that were darker skinned, because I think that's beautiful. But I remember going to a lot of like beautiful dark skinned women and asking them like, hey, would you love to model for my t-shirt campaign? We're trying to fundraise to create lupus awareness. And they're just like, why would you want me? Like I'm ugly. And I'm like, you're not ugly. I specifically scouted you because I thought you were gorgeous. And they're all like, no one uses dark skinned models anymore. That's not a thing. Like there's only like one or two allowed on the market. And I was just like, is this the way that you really think about yourself? Right. And again, that's a lot of the programming you put in the media, especially within like our own cultures, like especially being Asian and Pacific Islander. Light skin is also, colorism is also a huge issue in Asian culture. The lighter you are, the more successful you are.
Yep, absolutely. I feel like it's all part of one big program, one big system that was created for this. But that's a talk for another day.
Yeah, I know. So I could go on because I was just, I watched Mara La Negra episodes, and I just realized how it's just such an encompassing factor in so many different cultures where colorism is prominent. But yeah, again, so that just goes back to the play on how media has programmed not just how other cultures view us, but also how we view our own culture sometimes.
Yep. That's a whole nother, that's actually, I was actually asked to have that conversation. So I think we're going to invite you and a couple of other people for us to have kind of like a panel discussion around that colorism within our own communities, because that's a heavy conversation, and it's needed. It's time for us to start having it.
Yeah. But I think the main important aspect about what we can do now to deal with discrimination is being able to have conversations, being able to push our egos aside, being able to like stop creating a hierarchy. I see so many people say, okay, well, I have a Harvard degree or a Stanford degree, so I'm automatically entitled to be woke, you know?
Yeah. The I call it educationalism. That's not the word, but
Yeah.
it's one of those, like you said, the hierarchy. It's the hierarchy that creates us to start going into throwaway culture.
Yeah, and there's nothing wrong with being highly educated, but I think when we use that as a sense of privilege towards creating a hierarchy and ego towards other cultures and just other people in general, I think that's where the problem lies a lot.
Absolutely.
So being able to just let go of that hierarchy, that ego, and have real conversations and create the awareness and build more awareness. That's why we're doing what we're doing, which is creating this channel and these videos to help create more awareness in our community.
Yeah, that's exactly what it is. And so lastly, Alex, I'm just going to ask you this one last question.
Sure.
Is what advice are you willing to give white people to check privilege and really center people of color? Like what's one action step they could take away from our conversation today to check their own privilege?
I think just being able to take the step back and hear people of color out. I think that's the main thing. Being able to stop the offense. I think people have like their wall up, and being able to kind of break down that wall and just listen to someone and understand them and understand their struggles without having your defenses up is the most important thing you can do. Because I think that's what we have a lot of today, is that people just have their walls up and they're not willing to hear each other out. And I think that's our biggest issue.
Yeah. The spirit, I call it the spirit of offense and defense. You can either have two spirits besides your ego. You can be offensive or you can be defensive all the time. Mm-hmm. So learning to balance both. I think that's great advice, Alex. Thank you so much.
And I just want to acknowledge that a lot of the Caucasian viewers on my channel, they are actually doing that. They've watched my videos. And I love to give these shout outs because I like to give, support and thanks to people who deserve it. And everyone that's on my channel, on my Facebook channel, on my YouTube channel, on my Instagram channel, those Caucasian people have really watched my videos on diversity. They've made comments, they've asked questions, and they've interacted, and they've taken down their walls. And I think that's amazing. So I want to give a special shout out to them and thank them for their support, especially the ones of diversity. Yes. Yes.
Thanks, Alex. That's great. It's good to know that you have these videos on your channel, which can be an added resource for those of you who are watching to go to. I'll put it in the description box. But for those of you who have watched this video and enjoyed it, thank you so much. Alex, again, where can we find you online?
So you can find me on multiple places because I'm trying to create as much awareness as possible. So you can find me on my channel at Alex Tip, so just ALEXTIP. And this one actually works for both YouTube and Instagram. You can find me on YouTube and Instagram at just one name. That is Spirit Love 82. That's SPIRIT LOVE 82. And by joining that channel, we create a lot of awareness on the channel. So please interact with me. Love you all.
That's where you can find Alex. And for those of you who are tuning in, be sure to sign up for the Check Your Privilege workshop here in Oakland, California, happening at the end of August in our community talks as well. You're also welcome to purchase the Co-Conspirator workbook and join the Co-Conspirator Lounge, which is the lounge that is held by myself and moderated by other white women as we work to help you unpack your privilege. See you guys next time. Bye.
All right, bye everyone. Thank you.